I'm here in my garage, guys, and I'm going to be showing you my top 15 favorite baits for tournament fishing. I've got them all down here. I'm going to be showing them not necessarily in any particular order, but I'm going to kind of try to keep it that way, just so you guys can understand how much I like each bait. But it is hard when you have to narrow down the hundreds and thousands of baits that are out there into 15 that you like the most. Anyway, starting off with my number 15 pick is going to be a tube. You can take a little tube like this, put an offset hook in it with a weight on it, put some scent inside of it, drop it on the bottom. Good for catching largemouths and smallmouths that are on cover. You know, maybe they're holding on a rock or a pile of sticks underwater. You see them on that forward-facing sonar. This right here is a wonderful bait that you can pitch at. And on to the number 14 pick, I've got a missile D-bomb or a beaver, as they're sometimes called. You can take a bait like this, you throw a 1/2 ounce weight on it and like a 4-aught hook, and you can just, pitch this right into some weeds. I like to, go along the coast of a nice weeded area and just pitch this right in there, big bulrush, stuff like that. I've pulled out some big largemouths on stuff like this. Wonderful bait. My number 13 pick is going to be a swim bait like this. Something like a Kitech 3.8 or 4-inch swim bait. You can put a little 4-aught hook in that, sometimes a weight. Throw that on spinning rod, bait caster, anything you want. Really good bait. Sometimes you want to throw a trailer hook on them. Really nice. My number 12 pick is going to be crawfish. In this case, I have some rage tail craws in the summer craw color. These things are wonderful. You can throw them on the back of a chatterbait or a jig. Nice trailers, and they also make good standalone baits. Texas rig these. Actually, my PB for a while was caught on a Texas rig rage craw, 6.5 pound largemouth off of a bed with one of them. Really nice bait. Pick number 11 is going to be a white and silver fluke. This specific one is the mid-range size, not the smallest. I think it's a 5-inch one. These things are really nice baits. They're actually one of my favorite baits. That's why they're in this video. But you can throw a nice 3 or 4-aught hook in there, jerk it a couple times, let it sway, almost like a glide bait. Really, really awesome. And on top of that, you can get some of the other colors, like the green pumpkin ones. You can throw those right on the back of a chatterbait or something like that. They can also make a really good trailer. Okay, now we're in the top 10 baits, and to start us off, we have a Ned rig. Now, specifically a bubblegum Ned rig. I've won so many tournaments on a bubblegum Ned rig. During the spawn, you've got beds all around you. This is such a good bait to be able, you can precisely see in the water, you know exactly what that fish is doing to your bait. Throw it in there, you let it sink, drag it over the bed a couple times, boom. Especially the smallmouth, they get very aggressive with things like this. Now, I have a 1/8 ounce head on this. Sometimes you need to go up to 2/8, 3/8. It all depends on the environment you're in and how deep it is. Around me, we do a lot of shallow water fishing, especially even for smallmouth, like only about 5 to 8 feet of water. Our ponds are not that deep around here. Continuing the top 10 onto the number 9, I have a buzz bait. This one specifically is a Booyah Black Clacker Buzz. These things are really nice baits. You throw these out there, cloudy, maybe a little bit rainy. You throw these out there, make a nice ripple on the top. I've caught some nice fish on buzz baits, and as any topwater bait, they're very fun. In the next spot, number 8, we have a spook or a plug. This one specifically, you can hear it's got rattles on it and 3 treble hooks. I love baits like these. You throw these in, shallower water, like up to about, 15 feet maximum. When you're fishing for smallmouth too, you can even, I've had people catch 2 or 3 fish on one plug like that. These things, they walk through the water so nice, and you can really get some good fish on them. In the number 7 spot, we have a crankbait, specifically square bill crankbaits. This one is in a very nice color. I don't know exactly the name of it, but I like, the perch and bluegill colored ones. And this one has rattlers in it. These things are really nice for, shallow water. They don't dig too deep, which can be really annoying when you're in a pond that has a lot of grass that's suspended in the water column, and you're dragging your crankbait through it, and every single cast you're getting weeds on it. I recommend throwing a bait like this that'll stay just above those weeds, and the rattle can pull fish out of them sometimes. And in the number 6 spot, we have a jig. This specifically is a swim jig that I got off of one of my sponsors, Pulse Jigs. Please check them out at pulsejig.com. Anyway, This is in Ghost Bluegill color. Now, jigs are wonderful for penetrating weed mats and getting down deep to where some fish are. You get a jig, flip it under a dock. Excellent at penetrating cover. This specific one is a swim jig, so you're meant to put a trailer on it, almost like a chatterbait, but it is not bladed. Now into the top 5, and to start us off in the number 5 spot is a Berkeley flatworm, specifically in a drop shot style. These things are so good for catching smallmouth, suspended or on the bottom. They're actually one of my favorite baits of all time. This specific one is in green pumpkin. I love the smelt color and the goby color ones as well. Throw that on a drop shot with a 3/8 half ounce weight. Toss it down there in an area where there's like a bridge or a slight break in the shore. You get a little current coming through there. Toss this in the middle of it. You're probably going to pull up a couple fish. Just recently, I've had a couple tournaments up on Lake Champlain, and I caught, a couple 3+ pound smallmouths on this exact bait. So, continuing the top 5, in our number 4 spot, we have a frog. This specifically is a perch-colored popping frog from Booyah. I love to just put, 30, 40, 50 pound braid on here. You get a nice heavy action casting rod. Pitch this thing right over the scum, right over the weeds, lily pads. Pull out some big bass that way. And there's nothing more fun than getting a big blow up on a frog and getting that fish in the boat. Now into the top 3, and in the number 3 spot, we have a chatterbait. Now, this specific chatterbait is in some kind of a bluegill color form. I like to throw in the back of these a rage craw, or sometimes like a darker colored fluke, sometimes a trailer hook as well if they're short striking in a little bit. These baits are just one of the most incredible baits I've ever used. You catch largemouth and smallmouth on this. And you can also pull a lot of fish out of cover that with more conventional baits, you wouldn't actually be able to get those fish out. Just recently, I was fishing here on my home pond, and I was throwing a Senko all day, couldn't get a bite. I started throwing a chatterbait, and I pulled it over a weed pile, and a big 4-pound largemouth came out from underneath it. He heard the sound and came to check out what was going on. Wonderful bait. In the number 2 spot, we have a Texas rig Senko. This one specifically is in green pumpkin. I just absolutely love Texas rigs. They're really nice for weedy areas. Just the way that these things fall through the water like this, fish just can't resist them. And in the number 1 spot is a wacky rig Senko. Now, the reason I put the wacky rig over the Texas rig, this is kind of a controversial statement to some people. Texas rigs are really, really good when you're in a weedy environment. You're not going to get weeds on every cast, and they're more reliable to not gut hook the fish. But with that being said, there's no denying that a wacky rig has a better action when falling through the water and is easier for smaller fish to get. If you're throwing a 4, 5, or 7-inch Texas rig Senko, only bigger fish are going to actually go for that. When you're throwing a 4-inch wacky rig, I always throw 4-inch when I go wacky rig. You're using a smaller, maybe 2-aught, straight shank hook. You can actually get those smaller fish to maybe help you out a little bit during the tournament, and big fish love them too. I'll never forget one of my first ever tournaments. I caught a 5-pound largemouth on a wacky rig, pitching it at the shoreline. It was a very fun experience. Anyway, wacky rig is number 1.